Tom Fox shouts out to Kathryn Hunter. Karen Woody shouts out to the French comedy Call My Agent. Jay Rosen rants about Dan Shaughnessy. Jonathan Armstrong shouts out to Tracy Emin. And Matt Kelly laments Kathryn Montgomery. Welcome to Everything Compliance, Shout Outs and Rants. In this podcast, we focus on the shout outs and rants from the Everything Compliance gang. The gang, of course, is Jonathan Marks, Jonathan Armstrong, Matt Kelly, Karen Woody, and Jay Rosen, with Tom Fox sitting in as well. And now we are on to our fan favorite section of shout outs and rants. Mr. Armstrong, do you have a shout out and or rant for us today?
Yeah, I have a shout out to Tracy Emin. So for those of you who are not familiar with her work, she's the sort of, if you like, the former enfant terrible of the Brit art scene. Her works include My Bed, which was a bed which exhibited various activities that had gone on in the bed, and another work called Everyone I Have Ever Slept With, 1963 to 1995, which was a tent embroidered with the names of various individuals. Now, Tracy Emin has had a hard life and some difficulties in her past, but she's been very generous both to charities and to the nation. I was up in Scotland just before New Year's to see a really stunning sculpture that she'd just given to a gallery in Scotland for being kind to her whilst her works were being exhibited there. There was a bid, I think, of 75,000 sterling for this sculpture, but she'd given it to the gallery for free. And in 2011, she gave a work to the British government called More Passion. It's a neon sign installation. It was said to be one of the favourite works of David Cameron. And whilst it was given to the government art collection, it was assigned, possibly after David Cameron's intervention, to number 10. And it's been displayed on the wall in number 10. Tracy Emin explained the work by saying it was meant to promote a happy atmosphere like fun fairs, casinos, or bars. But this week she's asked for it to be removed from number 10. She said that Boris Johnson's government did not require any encouragement for a party. And she said, it's not a political thing, it's a moral, ethical thing. So when you're when you're the prime minister of a country and you're being lectured on morals and ethics by a Britpop artist, that to me is the time to go. And we've had alliteration throughout this podcast, with the Bee Gees being a famous example of alliteration. So I've got another example for you now. BoJo, just go.
Matt Kelly, what do you have for us?
Well, I have something that is probably closest to a rant, but this is actually a rather sad and serious lament that I just wanted to call the compliance officer's attention. This is a case of a missing girl in New Hampshire, 7 years old, by the name of Harmony Montgomery. Police have been searching for her for the last 4 weeks or so, and she actually has been missing since 2019 and had been unaccounted for because this girl's drug-addled mother was ignored while she tried desperately to raise alarms about her missing daughter for months, and nobody took her seriously. The girl, Harmony, bounced back and forth between the mother and the father, who is a man named Adam Montgomery. He is currently under arrest for assaulting his daughter at some point. He is not cooperating with with police and other law enforcement about where his daughter might be right now. He, in the past, had a history of drug dealing. He was arrested in connection with shooting a man in the head in Massachusetts in 2014. This is the man who wound up in had custody of her daughter because the mother, Crystal Sorey, was a drug user. She was homeless. She had her own criminal record. And because of that, when she realized in 2020 or so that her daughter hadn't been seen for months and had no idea where her daughter was, but knew the father was absolutely not a good person to care for her, she started telling police. She started telling social workers. She started calling schools to see, was my daughter enrolled there? She knocked on doors where she thought maybe her daughter was. None of this went anywhere until about 4 or 5 weeks ago, when she was more and more assertive. I think she finally reached out to the mayor of Manchester and started talking to the press. And that is when people finally realized, well, wait a minute. This woman's for real. We have no idea where this girl has been for 18 months, because the people in authority were not listening to the mother, because she was a mess. And I don't think she would really disagree with the statement that she was a mess. But that doesn't mean we should tune these people out. And I've been thinking about that because compliance officers and even me have reported, look, we all get a bunch of wackadoo calls. And we all know that most wackadoo calls are probably just wackadoos. But this is a reminder that you have to sit and listen through all of the wackadoos to find the one wackadoo who is actually sincere and truthful and has something worth investigating. Because if we had taken this woman seriously, perhaps this girl Harmony, we would know where she is today. But we have no idea where she is. And I have great fears that this case is going to turn out the way that we all think it's probably going to turn out. And it's a very grim, sobering reminder about the importance of a listen up culture, that we failed here in Massachusetts and New Hampshire to do that correctly.
Karen Woody.
All right. Well, I'm going to change the tone a little bit. Mine is much more lighthearted. In fact, I will say the last time I did the Shouts and Rants, I shouted out to the travel industry and the people who are helping. But I realized that was an aberration from my usual shout out to some sort of pop culture or recommendation. So I've co-opted Shouts and Rants somewhat to be Woody's pop culture Rex. So I'm going back to that today because my recommendation this week, or my shout out, is to this fantastic show that I've only now discovered, even though it's been on the air, I think, for a while. But I learned that it might be coming out with the 5th season. And that is the French comedy called Call My Agent. It's a fantastic show. You have to be willing to read the subtitles in French, which I suggest, I think, makes you smarter. You both learn French and you read while watching television. So it's a win all around. But it's a lovely show. It's hysterical. And I'm looking forward to the 5th season that is apparently coming out next year or sometime soon. But again, it's all about sort of the Parisian side of, it's like Entourage-ish, but not really. But it's the Parisian side of talent agency and the movie industry. And so there are a lot of very funny, high-profile guests on it. And so I would recommend it as a lighthearted way to avoid thinking about some of these heavier things at the end of the day.
So I'm going to give a shout out. First of all, I should preface this that Everything Compliance gang has really led many efforts in pop culture. Karen Woody started early Emmy buzz with Ted Lasso. Matt Kelly has started a very early 2023 Oscar buzz for Paul Rudd in Ant-Man 3 and an earlier. Well, I want to not start some Oscar buzz, but I want to add to some Oscar buzz for the Joel Coen movie version of the Shakespeare play Macbeth. I think both Denzel Washington and his wife, Frances McDormand, should both receive Oscars, but I want to focus on Kathryn Hunter. Kathryn Hunter played four roles actually in the play, and she played the Twisted Sisters, or the Three Witches. And Kathryn Hunter is a fabulous performance artist from the United Kingdom. She played the role using her body as much as her language. And it was fabulous. She was in one of the very first scenes where she, as the sister, gives a prophecy to Macbeth which leads him down the road to wreck and ruin. But I want to shout out to Kathryn Hunter. I hope she gets an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor or Actress. If you haven't seen the play, see it. It's a fabulous interpretation by Joel Coen as well. So, Jay Rosen, you want to close us out on Shout Outs and Rants?
I want to clean up, and I want to give a shout out to Boston Red Sox great slugger, David Big Papi Ortiz. He's on the Hall of Fame ballot for the first time ever. And Boston's own Dan Shaughnessy did not include Big Papi on the list of his choices for the Hall of Fame. David Ortiz says, Dan Shaughnessy's been an a-hole to everybody, so what can I tell you? It's not a surprise for me. It's not a surprise for you. Now, he didn't vote for me, so what can I do? I mean, seriously, there's not going to be anything that I can do that this one guy didn't vote for you. I can't stop it, and there's nothing you can do about it. So here's to Big Papi taking a healthy attitude towards a little criticism from a sports writer, and let's hope he gets into the Hall of Fame in 2022. Back to you, Tom.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fabulous episode. Thanks for everyone's great cultural references. Thanks for all the insights into Activision and Microsoft. If you're listening, everyone on this podcast has an email that will be listed in the show notes. If you need some help, let us know. This is Tom Fox again. Thank you for listening to this episode of Everything Compliance, Shout Outs and Rants. We have a lot of fun with this section of the Everything Compliance podcast, and I know you will enjoy listening to it. If you have ever thought about starting your own podcast and would like to find out more information, this is the time to do so. The Compliance Podcast Network is expanding and looking at new podcasts, so give me a shout. I'm Tom Fox at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Also, check out our newest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network family, Kathryn Woody with Classroom Insider, where, with the help of her students, she looks at the history of insider trading. It's a great way to explore a topic that many in the compliance field are somewhat familiar with, but need more information on. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Everything Compliance, Shout Outs and Rants is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.